Hello and welcome to another edition of the Winedown video blogs. I am your host, Ben Franco. Today we have two new wines that are going on the wine list, but I felt they needed some explanation. One of them is a new wine to me. It is one of those wines that I didn't think I would ever like, but it is. I've fallen in love with it, so it's kind of like one of the fun find of late last year. So that first wine is it's the Lucy M from Adelaide Hills. So this is from basically the southern part of Australia. So if you look at it, Australia kind of looks like a dog's head. It's the center and southern part of that. It has a really cool kind of label. You can see made of like fibered recycled material. But this is one of those wines, if you've heard the buzzword of natural wines, this is a natural wine. And what that means, just as a very tip of the iceberg thing, but basically they don't do a lot to the wine. So oftentimes winemakers will make a lot of selections in the winemaking process, from yeast to different types of how they want it to ferment. Do they want to ferment in a cold? Do they want to control the temperature? So this particular wine, they use all ambient yeast. So whatever yeasts are in the air is what is being used to ferment the wine. It's a really risky process oftentimes, because it could get a stop fermentation. Things could happen, but I guess if you have it figured out, it kind of works, and if it works good, it tastes pretty good. But the wines are very interesting and unique. Also, they don't control the temperature of the fermentation either. And then again, I know many people ask me about this, but this is a definite low sulfite wine. So they very little sulfites, as low as possible, basically right before bottling. So some of you folks that might be sulfite sensitive, this might be a wine for you. So I thought we'd taste it together on camera. So this is a Merlot, again from Adelaide Hills, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera. I know I can see it here. It has a little bit of a haze to it. It's not major, but it is a lighter ruby style wine. I can see my fingers through it for sure. And then not a lot of there's definitely some tears, but you don't see a lot of staining, so not heavily extracted. So on the nose, it's really unique, and it's really a hard wine to describe, but you know, the definite things I can describe is cranberries, cherries, sour cherries. There's a very interesting but pleasant medicinal character in the background, and when I say medicinal, I mean almost like bitters or something of that nature. Violets are huge coming out of this wine. Just lots of violets. So very interesting, unique nose. First off, those flavors explode on the palate. The cranberries, the cherries, the sour cherries, and then that medicinal thing I talked about. So it's hard to describe, but again, it's like I'm going to try to like from anise root and all those interesting things that you find in bitters. That's the kind of thing that's exploding on my palate right now. So, you know, the dominant flavors are definitely the cranberries and cherries. Even some strawberry happening in there. There's a little bit of a sourness to the fruit as well. Lots of acidity. The wine is really interesting, and just has lots of flavors. It just keeps going and going and going. I think many of you will find this a very unique and interesting wine. This wine, it is the ODDERE. This is a Nebbiolo. So basically, if you've heard of Barbaresco and Barolo, this is the grape of Barbaresco and Barolo. So if you were in northern Italy, if you're in the region of Piedmont, which is where this wine comes from, there's a large region called the Langhe. Okay, and inside the Langhe, you would find Barolo and Barbaresco. Okay, This wine comes from possible vineyards within Barolo and Barbaresco, but a lot of times it'll come from fruit outside of those vineyards in the greater Langhe. Oftentimes, winemakers will actually make their Barolo or the Barbaresco. In this particular, they do make Barolo. They can downgrade their Barolo grapes if they're not good enough for the Barolo and put them in their Langhe red wine. So we oftentimes just jokingly maybe refer to it as a baby Barolo or a baby Barbaresco. Same grape, not the same aging technique or the length of aging, but really a lot of the same kind of juicy flavors, big bold tannins that kind of go with it. So let's kind of review this wine. So this wine is interesting, and even if we had a Barolo or a Barbaresco in front of us, even though they're known as big bold wines, they're very light in color. Nebbiolo is not a has a thinner skin, doesn't get a lot of extraction. You'll see some nice tears there, and there is a little bit of staining in those tears, but you do notice that you can see your fingers through this wine. It is lighter in style. So let's go on to the nose. Sour cherries first and foremost. Sour cherries, red roses, kind of a slight methanol thing in the background. Oftentimes they say road tar is a nose for Nebbiolo. I don't pick up a lot of it in this one, but I do pick up some red roses, kind of like fresh turned soil too. Let's go into the palate. It's tart, so you got the sour cherries happening in front of the palate. There's acidity, but then the tannins kick in. So this wine will, dry your mouth. This wine is one that you might want to have with it. This will go great with the Piave, or great with one of the cheese plates here, or great with some meats or with dinner. This is a food wine, but yeah, this wine is a very deceiving wine. You look at it, it looks very, light-bodied, lifestyle, but then it kicks in. It really has some oomph behind it. So those of you who are Barolo Barbaresco drinkers, this is a very, very, very good winemaker. And again, kind of a baby version of those wines, but still has that structure and still be reminiscent of it. All right, hopefully we'll see you this week to try out some of these great wines. We'll see you next time on the Winedown Vlogs.